suitably qualified, there are some things that you have to look at to see whether or not they are suitable for the particular job that you want to place them in. Okay? Because if they are responsible for your customer service and for being early to make sure the organization starts early and they have a punctuality problem, they could have bright like morning star. They're not going to be the best fit for that job. What do you think about that, Jackie?
Sorry, struggling to unmute. Fully agree with that. And just going back to your linesman example.
Yes.
Right? Suppose you have a man that is heavy, he weighs 300 pounds and is not very agile. He could have all the knowledge, and it would be unlikely that he would do a good job.
Exactly.
Right? And you may have a very athletic woman. You may have a Megan Tapper who, after sports, says, I think I want to do this. Then you'd have no doubt in your mind that if that's her interest, and if she gets the requisite training, she would probably be an outstanding, just because she has unusual athletic ability. So those are, agreeing with what you're saying.
And I like the look. I see you in your hard hat.
Oh, I didn't turn off my video. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, goodness.
All right. No problem.
Julian, yes, I was saying the same thing. If I could interject here, can I? When I saw Jackie in her hard hat, I was like, okay.
Jackie, that's exactly what I was saying, that she is suitable for the job.
Yes.
Right? But she has the qualification and the suitability.
Right.
You see, she out there in the field. And, it's so funny that I would have used an example like that of a woman, not knowing that Jackie was literally out in the field.
And that's because I can't sit at my desk. So I learn better when I move. So from school days, I get in trouble, walk up and down, but you listen because you don't have to be tied down. So
Right.
Let me take off my video. That was a perfect mistake.
That's right. All right. So,
but Julian, before you go on, Julian, as you mentioned just now, can I go ahead?
Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Okay. As you mentioned just now about the punctuality and the separation of candidates, I think it is keen for persons who are recruiting, because I did a recent reference background check. I was called, and interestingly, the team member had a history of being late.
Yes.
A history of being late. And interestingly, it never came out, and the team member was actually eventually terminated as a result of that, because it does affect our line. And interestingly, the recruiter did not ask me anything about that team member. As a matter of fact, the infractions the team member had, there was nothing adverse that I could respond to, because I was never asked, and I'm only going to respond to what I'm asked.
Yes.
I think it's important. And punctuality, persons may see this as, just a little 5 minutes or 10 minutes, but consistent habitual lateness will affect your line of work. It depends on the line of work you're in, by the way. And I think it's unprofessional.
Let me tell you something. A good question to ask on a scale of 1 to 10 in relation to punctuality, how would you rate yourself? Because you know something, when they say what they're saying, you have already told them implicitly that punctuality is valued by your organization. What you have already said implicitly is that if they have stated something that is not true, then there lies a problem. So when you start the process in relation to dealing with punctuality issue with them, they can't say anything, because they would have confirmed with you from the get-go that they also value punctuality. So write that down, scratch that down somewhere. You need to find somewhere in your interviewing to ask that question, right, about punctuality. All right? All right, so onboarding, that is the process of integrating the person to the organizational culture. But I guardedly say the good parts of the organizational culture, because you don't want them to come there, come turn the rest of the people in that you having problem with, right? So your orientation package to these new workers, these new employees, should be filled with the technical that they need to know, but also organizational culture and values that you'd want them to be aware of, right? So that onboarding exercise is extremely important. Too often, we hire people, we tell them, put them in a nice office, give them the computer and the whatever, and introduce them to staff, and that's where it ends. I am suggesting that a very strong organization must take the time to give them this power talk, do the onboarding process in a way that they understand their expectations, the expectations of them, and also to measure what they are expecting from the relationship as well. Okay. All right. Any comments on this slide? If not, I will proceed. All right. So when we talk about recruitment, I am sure that many people didn't know that there's a labor law about that. How many people know? Open your mic and say, I did.
I did not, and I thought I was quite off with the labor law.
I did not. I did not either.
You did not. Okay.
I'm happy I'm not alone.
Yesterday, that's why I tell you, so we can talk with certainty that most people never know that.
Absolutely did not know.
All right. So you learn something new that you can tell some people. So there is a legislation called the Recruiting of Workers Act, right? And it's a little dated, but it still is in force. And it still says a few things that I'm going to bring up to your attention that is relevant to this discussion. So it prohibits the recruitment of persons under the age of 18 years for full-time work. So that's why you hear us talking about child labor and whatever. And recently, I had to take to task my staff by saying that we have to tailor what comes from the global space, because globally it is said that a child above the age of 15 can work, but doing light work. But what it does not recognize is that national law supersedes that. So while that child at 15 can work in some countries, in Jamaica, we have this act that says that they're not legally entitled to work full-time. It doesn't say full-time in the act, but I'm just adding that part so it's better understood. They can't legally work full-time until they're 18. And that is why at age 18 is when they get the NIS number, because this act, the NIS Act rather, is in harmony with this one, okay? So it's not just pulled out of a hat to say, oh, you have to be 18. Where did that come from? Who made it up? It's actually in the legislation. And what it further says is that other persons below the age of 18 can work, and I'm just paraphrasing, can work, but they must be at minimum 16 years and older. So that means a child between the ages of 16 and not yet 18 can work, but under internship, apprenticeship conditions, or like a part-time, you know, those kids that work doing gift wrapping at Christmas time, or in the supermarkets just helping as packers, or in whatever other kind of light work, once it is not preventing them from their schooling and so, right? So this act is one of the most significant ones in relation to recruiting of workers. Yes, Lisa.
Morning, Gillian. Morning, everybody.
How you doing?
I just downloaded the act, and I noticed I was just skimming, and it said that the person shall recruit unless you're licensed to.
I am going to, that's why I started those slides first.
Oh.
Yes. So may go help you with that part then. Because it speaks about recruiters. So all the type of people who are advertised that they're a recruiter and kind of something. We're going to address that. Right?
Okay.
Right. So that's why I distinguish between staffing and recruiting. Earlier. You saw that slide or you came on after?
I came on late. Sorry about that.
You came on late. So we're saying staffing is at HR filling the vacancies, but the recruiter is going out there to the labor market to find the persons who are considered to be part of the labor market supply, right? And recruiters have to be licensed. So I'm going to get into that a little bit further soon. So I'm happy that you pulled it up, Lisa. Right. So this act says it allows for medical examination of workers to determine fitness for work. And I'm paraphrasing it. So this is where this medical for the job comes in, right? This is the legislation that speaks to it. Okay. And sometimes we're doing things in HR, we're doing things in our organization, but we really don't know what's the background to support what we're doing. So asking for a medical examination is not to find out if the person have diabetes, hypertension. It's not to find out if them have anemia or them something there. That's not what it's about. Because what the medical practitioner is required to do is do their own medical checks, but the only part of it that is supposed to be disclosed to the organization is whether or not the person meets the fitness required for the job that they're going to be performing, right? So a medical letter will come back to say the person is considered to be fit for the particular role or work. Okay, so a lot of persons sometimes say, what am I saying about doctor for? You know, what am I them in my business? No, it is to ensure that the person is not being put in a position that will cause liability on the company, right? Because you expose them in a way that, you know, could be injurious to other staff members or to the worker, him or herself. And I'll share with you that I had a personal experience where I joined an organization. Yes, the staff are already in place, and a gentleman who was a driver. He would have to drive to some very remote locations where we had outstations. And one of them was somewhere up in the Blue Mountains area. And you know, anybody who go up there said, know them, the road is treacherous, right? One day I was in my office and I heard one big commotion and people running in one, and saw people running in one direction past my office. Then I was still working, but I'm saying to myself, something is not right here. One member of staff came to my office and said, Miss Carrodus, you know, here says so-and-so dropped down. The person was a driver. I said, well, yeah, what happened to him? She said, may I turn the door? May I go lock the door? And she did. She said, he have fits, you know, he have fits. But may I tell you the God I live in truth, you know. I true, me no want to lose the work, you know, because they say when driver have fits enough to drive. And me I tell you, say, me no want to lose the work, you know. But it I get out of hand, you know. Because every minute him I drop down, you know. And it'll take a long time for them to recover him, she's saying. And you know what she continues to say? That some time ago, she was walking on Orange Street downtown, very highly populated center of downtown Kingston. And she saw a crowd gathered. You know, Jamaican people, they run towards the crowd. And she was the same. When she looked, it was the same guy that they had on the ground. He had an epileptic attack. Now, listen to me carefully. Can you imagine if I would have said as a senior director that he was to transport 2 or 4 or any number of staff members to that outstation and he had an attack, you know what would have happened? I would have endangered the lives of all of those staff members that I sent with him, including himself. So while a doctor would not have disclosed what was the exact nature of his illness, the doctor would say that he's not considered suitable for that particular job function. And I want to say to you as HRs or as persons who are involved in the recruitment of workers, you should make it very clear that if the person is not suitable for one thing, doesn't mean they're not suitable for the organization. And there are possibilities too of finding a better place